in this room. I don't mind it though. 5 years ago, the last Sunday of July, we packed up the old church, last bits of stuff that were ours. We hauled them up to this beer and cigarettes and Twinkies grocery store. We lugged some stuff into the basement. We cleaned out the basement. And the first Sunday of August, 5 years ago, we actually began construction in this building. There was about 25 of us left. Who was here that first Sunday? Raise your hand if you were in that. Me. Right, there's like 7 of us in the room right now. 7 or 8 of us in the room who were here that very first Sunday. And we began the construction of this dream to build a functioning ministry that would be a 7-day-a-week church where people could come anytime they wanted, because we were going to have a job training cafe that was going to take people out of poverty or addiction or incarceration and getting them back into society with a job skill, and it was going to be selling coffee, and we'd have a great time. We'd be open to the public. How hard could it be? Right? And little did we know. And as the journey began and we were in the middle of building things out, we because of the way the sale of the building went, we only got 20% down, and then we got monthly payments, which basically kept us alive, and then a big balloon payment on the end. So when it did us, all we had was $160,000 to do this massive build out. And so a lot of us were here ourselves doing a lot of the work. And many of you know the story that we ran out of money in Thanksgiving Day. We were broke, and we were not completed yet. And we didn't know what we were going to do, because there's 20 to 25 of us. We had all of this obligation, we had this debt, we had this building, we had no money, and we didn't even have toilets in the bathroom. And we had been working and working. We had torn all the toilets out to do the remodel. All we had was a single outhouse in the bath, all through the winter months. That's what we had. So now it's December, and we're just having a real struggle trying to stay alive. And now we have not a dime, and we don't know what to do. The floors are not in. The bathroom doesn't have fixtures. We're broke, and we're hopeless. And all we could do was pray. We didn't have any resources. We couldn't get a bank loan. We were sitting there wondering if we were going to shut the whole thing down and have to sell a torn apart building that was now worth a fraction of what it was before we tore it apart, because now it's in a wreck. We didn't know what to do. We gathered to meet with our contractor, and he would meet with us right after Thanksgiving. And during that Thanksgiving break, a lady who had died a year and a half earlier, her estate was finally settled, and we got a $20,000 a check in the mail. Unexpected. I didn't even know who she was. Frances, you might have remembered her. I mean, some old-time person of the church who hadn't been to church, and I'd been pastoring by 7, 8 years, and I'd never heard of her. And they were standing there with $20,000, and we're like, let's try to get this thing going. And over Christmas break, we said, well, what's the most important stuff we can do? We said, well, if we can get a floor in, and we can get toilet fixtures, and we can get bathroom lights and that kind of thing, it's probably the next most important thing. So a bunch of us spent our Christmas break out there ripping apart the floor and screwing down this plywood sheets, probably 50 screws in each one, and getting the cheapest VCT tiles we could, vinyl composite tile, that we could find. It was still commercial grade, and they came at like 80 cents a piece. And then just gluing those things down to get in a floor, get the bathrooms done, and we got through Christmas, and we were into January wondering, now what are we going to do, because we're still not finished. And not finished in January is when I met with the director of Catholic Charities, paraded him through our unfinished building. He said, wow, I can't believe how far you guys have gotten on only $160,000, because they build major buildings. And he goes, what do you guys need to finish this thing? And I said, I don't know, $75,000 more. And when we started this journey, we had planned on being open in September. Already, September's come and gone. Now we're not even sure we get open by Easter, a year later. And he says, well, $75,000, I can get that for you. And about 4 weeks later, Catholics gave us $50,000 to finish the job. Couldn't quite put us over the top, but because Mars Hill, the church who bought us, was collapsing, they owed us some down payment money. They owed us some money that was going to be spread out in payments for 2 years, and they were going to walk on that deal and leave us hanging, because that church was collapsing. As I like to tell the story to people, they came to us in October of 2013, and they were 17 campuses, 15,000 members, $35 million a year in income, and no one knew what their assets were because they kept that closed and private. We were 35 members, 20 drunks, and 4 dogs, and $180,000 in debt. And a year later, one of those 2 churches was gone. The other was still standing. I wonder what the Vegas odds would have been on that bet. Because we were the ones still standing, and they disappeared and were gone. And they were going to leave us totally hanging, because remember, they were supposed to make these payments for 2 years with a big balloon payment on the end. And they were just going to absolve themselves and walk away and not do anything. Only they needed to sell a $4 million campus over in Ballard, in the Seattle area. And our sister church in our denomination, Quest Church, was buying the Ballard campus. And the guy who negotiated the deal with us from Chicago, from our denomination, was the same guy negotiating that deal. And so he sat down with him and he said, oh, okay, you want to sell this $4 million building in Ballard to us? You got to do right by Spokane, and you can't leave them hanging, so you better pay out that $75,000 you owe them. And so they slid that money to us in the, must have been early March, I think it was. And that put us over the top. We got open on Easter Sunday of 2015. Boy, has this place just made me old. I had hair when this thing started. And I wasn't gray when this thing started. And so we opened it away. Now the roof always leaked. For 5 years, the roof leaked because we did a cheap roof. It was one of our biggest problems. When we took the bid from the contractor, he gave us $8,000 patch job on the roof. Like we patched that for $8 grand. After we got in here and he got working on it, it turned into a $40,000, completely changed the roof. But he was still doing it on the cheap, on the fly, trying to find ways to get us in. And so this roof we'd spent 40 grand to put on leaked. And we knew exactly, over time, we could tell you exactly where the leaks were. One in the women's room, one in the men's room, one back in room 2 in the corner. This room never leaked. Out in the front, we knew 2 leaks and one in the kitchen. Every time it rained, before it started leaking, we knew where to put the buckets. Right? And so all this time, we were trying to deal with the roof, and finally we just came to a conclusion. We're going to have to put on a new roof. So we began the process of that. $50,000 roof is what it really probably needs. We got bids for cheaper than that, but long story short, probably 50, 45, 50, we're not sure. So we've been dealing with the roof for a couple of years, and finally we pulled the trigger this spring, get the roof in, let's get this done. The company that actually won the bid came to us when we said, okay, start coming and doing the work, and they came back to us and said, oh yeah, that $36,000 bid we gave you is no good anymore. Here's our new bid, and it was $104,000. We're like, we won't work with you people again. So we found the next highest bid up, and those guys came, great guys, wonderful to work for. They began, and about 3 weeks ago, not quite 3 weeks ago, they began the process of doing our roof. There was a delay in shipment of some supplies that were needed, so about 5-6 days got put on hold while they waited for. And 2 weeks ago on Monday, they really began in earnest doing the work. And they started at that far corner of the building, and they began tearing off the old roof this way. And Tuesday night, July, what was that, 28th? We had the biblical storm, right? Where lightning didn't go from sky to ground. It went from horizon to horizon. And the massive winds came through. And news people hadn't even warned us about it. It was like no one even said, we're having this storm, everybody batten down the hatches. Now the guys had seen it, they put a tarp over the thing, but in those winds and that high rain, and that moment when our roof was partially torn off, we came in the next morning and there were big pools of water all out there in our cafe. Huge pools that had sunk through the VCT tiles, down into the subfloor, which was particle board, which soaks up water like a sponge. And before the day was even done, the floor was buckling. And our first reaction was, let's get down here right now, let's tear up this wet floor, let's repair where it is. The roofing guys started in front of the barista bar. The barista girls closed the cafe that day. They were dealing with what equipment had gotten soaked. I mean, water was inside the baked good cabinets. And we're cleaning and doing everything that we can. We're mopping floors, we're setting out buckets, because it's still like, I have video of it, it drips like it's a drummer going, and you want to like, I can dance to this, right? And except it wasn't worth dancing over. And so we had all these buckets all over the place. We had 40 buckets. We're running down to the basement, grabbing everything we can find to catch water, catch them back in room 2, and all of that kind of thing. And then by that night, a couple of our elders came in. Rhonda, our chairman of the board, her husband Jim, I think Virgil may have come down, and they looked at the floor, and it was buckling and buckling more and more. And the reality was, we were not going to be able to patch this problem. And the cafe was like, well, wait, we were going to just patch this and be reopened on Monday. And what's the reality? Well, the reality is we have to deal with this proofing company and their insurance and our insurance, and it's going to probably now mean the entire floor torn out. We're looking at 4 to 6 weeks. And the coffee shop was like, you know, in 4 weeks all of our employees will be gone with new jobs, and they'll be reopening it, and that'll be too difficult. And Tanya had already decided, because after such a long time, 5 years of doing this, you know, our cafe's actually never made money. It's always lost money. Every year it's lost money. Every month it loses money. Taxes has been the biggest problem. It never quite does enough business to actually could just barely float by covering the bills. And then every year at the end of the year, like how much money did the coffee shop lose this year? I don't know. Last year, 2018, probably $8,000. And we knew it was going to be losing in the neighborhood even more. Every time the minimum wage skyrockets, the employer has to pay more than just that. So minimum wage was driving up over the last 2-3 years, and taxes were going up. And so we had already decided what we need to do is bring in some other organization. We're going to close the Streetwise Cafe and bring in some other cafe operation who might want to lease the building, and we'll be in partnership with them, and we'll start negotiating that. We think we have till Christmas to get that figured out. And then the rainstorm hit, the cafe closed, and here we are. Like, okay, now it's going to take us four weeks of tearing up the floor. We have had asbestos tested. We've done things like that, so there's no asbestos in the tiles, so we know we can do it. And we decided as the leadership, we said, let's not replace what's there, because that was the dirtiest, cheapest, easiest floor we could do. Let's tear up what's there. Let's put down better grade plywood and maybe some clicking groove kind of floor, luxury vinyl tiles where it doesn't let water seep through, so it will cost us more than just replace. Even if insurance hands us a check, we're probably going to spend a little bit more to get a better floor in. It's going to take us till, I don't know, early September, depending on how good you guys are tomorrow night, really. It could take us to the end of September, and I'm praying, and I'm saying to the Lord, what is this? And all I could hear him say is, it's a Ziklag moment. Any of you have any idea what Ziklag is? No. All right. I do. You know how sometimes God speaks to you, and he speaks in a way that only you, like, he knows the word that will mean everything to you. Yes. But it won't mean anything to anybody else or something. And when he said it's a Ziklag, I knew exactly what he was talking about. I knew exactly what he meant, and I knew the implications. Because see, Ziklag was a city that King David lived in before he became king. And some stuff happened while he was at Ziklag that was transformative in his life. If you got a Bible, turn me to 1 Samuel chapter 27. If you don't, Joey, you got a slew of Bibles back at your feet, don't you?
Yes,
Let's hand a few out.
You bet.
Raise your hand. Joey will get a Bible to you. Mark will get a Bible to you. And we're going to look at 1 Samuel early in your, and I don't know what page number is going to be on those Bibles that you guys are handing out. Just hold up your hand. They'll slip a Bible to you. And if you know the story of David, he's the one who killed Goliath. And that made him a champion and a hero. We're going to go to 1 Samuel 27. A champion and a hero. And he was so popular that King Saul began to hate him because he was more popular than the king. King Saul drives him out of the court, hunts him down, makes him an outlaw, puts a price on his head, tells lies about him, tells him he's a rebellious, traitorous person. We know from the Psalms that actually the Israelites at that time made up beer drinking songs in the taverns about David and what a rascal he was and how no one should be like David. We know that that was kind of thing was happening to him. His name was being tarnished, although he had been nothing but a champion warrior. And in 1 Samuel 27, he spares Saul's life for the second time. And he decides it's time to just end this whole thing that I'm dealing with. It says, "And David said in his heart, 'Now I shall perish someday by the hand of Saul. There's nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines.' And Saul will despair of me, to seek me any more in any part of Israel. So I shall escape out of his hand. And then David arose and went over with the 600 men who were with him to Achish, the son of Maach, king of Gath. So David dwelt with Achish at Gath, and he and his men, and each man with his household, and David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam and the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's widow. And it was told Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he sought him no more. Then David said to Achish, if I have now found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? So Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. Now the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 1 full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and raided the Gershurites, and the Gizurites, and the Amalekites. For those nations were the inhabitants of the land from of old. As you go to Shur, even as far as the land of Egypt. Whenever David attacked the land, he left neither man nor woman alive, but took away the sheep, the oxen, the donkeys, the camels, the apparel, and he returned and came to Achish. And then Achish would say, well, where have you been arrayed today? And David would say, oh, against the southerners of Judah, or against the southern area of the Jehorammites, or against the southern area of the Kenites. And David would say, neither man nor woman alive, to bring news to Gath, saying, lest they should inform him on us, saying, this David did. And this was his behavior all the time he dwelt in the country of the Philistines. So Achish believed David, saying, he has made his people of Israel utterly abhor him, and therefore he will be my servant forever. It's a weird story. It begins with David not consulting God, not asking God what to do, not praying about it, but making this decision. I'm leaving Saul, and I'm going to go to the Philistines. And why that's weird is for the last several years, the number one guy killing Philistines has been David. He's been their arch enemy. He killed their champion Goliath. You know what city Goliath is from?
Yeah.
Gath. And he decides, I'm going to go to Gath. I have already killed their champion, and I'm going to seek refuge with their king. I think that's odd, but we're not a warrior society like they are. They honored champions and they honored warriors, and in societies where you fought like that, sometimes if a champion was willing to switch sides and come to you, you embraced him. You took him in because you wanted that warrior on your team. So he goes in with the king of the Philistines in the city of Gath, and he says, let me live in the faraway place of Ziklag. So he gives them the city of Ziklag, which if you were to go back further at the time of Joshua when they were first conquering the land, Ziklag was supposed to belong to the tribe of Judah. It was supposed to be one of the cities Judah got. How'd the Philistines get it? Not recorded in the Bible. But here they are hanging on to a city that is actually part of David's clan. And so David goes and he's given Ziklag, and he lives in Ziklag for 1 year and 4 months with his 600 warriors. And he's got these very powerful warriors broken into ranks. There's top 3 guys who are champions. There's another 30 who are warriors. Each one that Scripture will say was worth 1,000 men. And he's got these incredible warriors. And in order to pay his taxes, he has to keep supplying the king of Gath with all of these cattle, with sheep, with the things that he's supposed to give him. And he's supposed to be doing it by protecting the borders and raiding the enemies. Well, the king's enemies are David's fellow Jews. And so instead of raiding his fellow Jews, he picks a different enemy and he goes south towards Egypt and he attacks these other people groups who have been in the land a long time. And what he does, and the scriptures don't tell us whether it was right or wrong, they don't bless it, but they say this is what David did, and it may be something God didn't like, and it may be something that God did was indifferent to, I don't know, but it doesn't tell us it was wrong. But what David did is he killed every single man and woman and took all the stuff. And he made sure that no one would escape to get back to King Achish and say, hey, David's not killing Jews, he's killing these other people. And so he would come to the king with all of his oxen, all of these sheep, all of this stuff he'd stolen, all this gold, all this jewelry, and say, here. And the king would say, where'd you get this stuff? He'd say, oh, I've been raiding southern Judah. I've been raiding the Kenite tribe, the Jezreelite tribe. I've been raiding the Jewish people. The king would go, right on, now they're going to hate you. You'll be on my team forever. Not knowing that David's actually playing against it. It's a game that David's playing to try to make life work in Ziklag because life's not working anywhere else for him. He's not there because he asked God to be there. He's doing the best he can with the situation he's in. But it's not the promise of God. He'd already received the promise of God from the time he was a little kid. He had already been anointed by Samuel to be king one day. Songs were already being sung that one day he'll be king. The prophecies had already been that he's supposed to be the king of the Jews. The prophecies had come that he will one day sit on the throne. Thousands of people knew that. In fact, while he's at Ziklag, if you read Chronicles, other warriors are leaving the tribe of Benjamin and the tribe of Manasseh and coming and gathering with him in Ziklag because they know David's going to be king and our current king Saul's insane. Ziklag is where he lives not in the blessing of God, but in something that's close. A lot of us have Ziklag moments. A lot of us have times in our lives when we're living in something, it's like, it's not exactly the blessing of God, it's not exactly the promise of God. I actually didn't consult God to get here. I'm doing the best I can with what I have, but it's a struggle to be in this life doing it this way, but it's kind of working for me. A lot of us have times when our lives are in Ziklag moments. The story is very interesting because he's surviving pretty well. His army's growing. The families have settled in. He's in a town that belonged to Judah. He's from the tribe of Judah. Sure, he's serving a Philistine king, but he's doing the best he can in the situation that he's in. War will break out. And when we get to skip to chapter 29. War is going to break out between the Jews and the Philistines. And then the Philistines gathered together all their armies at Aphek. And the Israelites encamped by a fountain, which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed in review by hundreds and by thousands. And David and his men passed in review at the rear with Achish. And then the princes of the Philistines said, "What are these Hebrews doing here?" And Achish said to the princes of the Philistines, "Is this not David, the servant of Saul, king of Israel, who's been with me these days, or these years? And to this day, I have found no fault in him, since he defected to me." But the princes of the Philistines were angry with him. And the princes of the Philistines said to him, "Make this fellow return, that he may go back to the place where you have appointed for him, and do not let him go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he become our adversary. For with what could he reconcile himself to the matter, if not with the heads of these men? Is this not David, of whom they came, and they sang to one another in dances? Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? And then Achish called David and said to him, "Well, surely as the Lord lives, you have been upright, and your going out and your coming in with me in the army is good in my sight. For to this day I have not found evil in you since the day of your coming. Nevertheless, the Lords do not favor you. Therefore return now and go in peace, that you may not displease the lords of the Philistines." So David said to Achish, "But what have I done? And to this day, what have you found in your servant, as long as I have been with you, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king?" And Achish answered and said to David, "I know you're as good in my sight as an angel of God. Nevertheless, the princes of the Philistines have said, he shall not go up with us to the battle. Now therefore, rise early in the morning with your master's servants, and who have come with you, and as soon as you are up early in the morning and have light, depart." So David and his men rose early to depart in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Jezreel. They finally had a battle. Finally one day the war is going to break out. This minor conflict between the Philistines and the Israelites has been raging. And finally, full-scale war breaks out. The 5 cities of the Philistines gather together, and they assemble their armies, and Saul assembles his army, and are getting ready. And now what happens in that system is any of the servants are called up to, like, it's time to fight, we're going to war. Everybody who's under my care and my protection, like the feudal lord, come on, we're all going to fight together. So David has to go up with his lord, the king of Gath, to fight against his real king, King Saul, and his fellow Israelites. It's a bad situation. And as he's there, he parades in the rear, and he's going through the rear of the parade where the whole army's coming by and they're counting and assembling the men. And the other kings of the Philistines are looking like, "Hey, that's David. We hate him. That's the guy who's been killing us for years. We have fought against that guy for a long, long time. What's he doing here on our side?" And Achish is like, "Oh yeah, I didn't tell you. He's been with me for about 1.5 years. He's been with me almost 2 years now. And he's done great. And they're like, are you crazy? This battle's going to break out, and you'll have 600 of the fiercest warriors on the battlefield behind us at our backs. What's the best way for David to get in good with King Saul, who we know there's been a fallout with? The best way he could get in good with King Saul is to attack us from behind and kill all of us, and that will make Saul happy with it. We're not having this guy or his 600 men with us. Send him home. And so the king has to go and say, I'm sorry, David, but none of the Philistines want you, and you got to go home. And I love David says, hey, what have I ever done wrong? Right? Haven't I served you well? It's like, well, we know the story. No, you haven't been serving him well. You've been kind of lying and cheating on him, right? And the other thing is, I love what he says, when they go to battle, he says, I will show you what I can do against the enemies of my Lord the King. Which Lord the King are you talking about? Are you talking about Achish? Or are you talking about King Saul? Which Lord the King are you going to fight for in this battle? He's just vague enough that we all wonder, right? Philistine says, go home. We can't have you here. So he takes his 600 men, he heads home. He says, now it happened, when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and attacked Ziklag, and burned it with fire. And they had taken captive the women, and those who were there, from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but carried them away, and went their way. So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. When David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the widow of Nabal the Carmelite, had been taken captive. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, please bring the ephod here to me. And Ahimelech brought the ephod to David. So David inquired of Yahweh, saying, shall I pursue the troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered, pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So David went, he and his 600 men who were with him, and they came to the brook of Besor. Let's stop right there. So here's David. They're like, they've been gone 3 days. They're marching back. They come back, and the city that they had left behind, they had all of their sons and all of their daughters, all of their goods, Ziklag, that they've been living in and prospering in and hanging on in. Not exactly God's place for him, and not the prophecy that God had given him, but the place he's doing the best he can with what he has been attacked by the Amalekites and utterly destroyed and completely burned. And the response of the guys with him is, we've been gone 3 days, and the Amalekites were a vicious people. They're sort of like, you ever read about the raids that happen in Sudan, where there's these raiders that come down out of Arabia and out of northern Egypt, and they butcher and they pillage and they rape and they burn and they throw babies in the fire and they do all that. That's happening in the modern times, right? Amalekites were like that. These raider parties who were nomadic and were vicious and vile and cruel and butchering. That's who Amalekites were. And they had come to the city, but they had 3 days to get away. And so David and his men arrived at the city, and everything they've ever been trying to build, ever been trying to create, ever been trying to have happen, has now been destroyed. And they don't know whether they'll ever catch up with them, because they're now 3 days behind, trying to catch up. And they've just marched who knows how far to get to where they are, and they're exhausted and tired. And so the men turn to David, and they're like, we're going to kill you. It's your fault we're here. You caused this, which everybody knows. Well, David had nothing to do with that. Well, you're the one that brought us to Ziklag, so now this wouldn't have happened had you not been in Ziklag. Had we not, so they're going to kill David. And David's response is, let's ask God what to do next. It's a good move, finally. And so, in this weird twist of fate, the high priest of all of Israel is hanging out with David in Ziklag. Why is the high priest of all of Israel hanging out with David in the town of Ziklag? Because King Saul had already killed the original high priest, slaughtered all the priests, and only one guy got away, the son of the high priest. making him, it was an inherited job. And when he got away, he took this thing as the priestly garment that had been for the time of Aaron. It was called the ephod. And in it, we don't know what it is, but it was probably 2 stones. And they were called the Urim and the Thummim. And they were like, they would give yes-no answers. And they were always right. So if you asked God a question, they would somehow, I don't know if they spilled out of a bag, I don't know if they rolled them like dice, no one knows. But the Urim and the Thummim could be used to get actual yes-no answers from God. And for some reason, God has seen to it that at the right time, the high priest and the ephod and the Urim and the Thummim are with David in Ziklag. God has not abandoned David. God has not turned his back on David. All of Ziklag's burned, and David's like, let's ask God what to do. And the answer is, hey, this is a wild, crazy, huge desert out there. Will we ever find these guys who come and taken our families? And God's answer is yes. Chase them, you'll find them. And he goes, will we get our stuff back, and are they safe? And God's answer is yes. So exhausted, 600 men head out to try to catch up. And they're moving at a super fast pace, so they got 3 days to try to catch up. And they will eventually leave 200 guys behind who are too exhausted to go further. 400 of them will catch up to the Amalekites because they first find this guy in the desert who's a slave, he's an Egyptian slave, who was left sick. And they have compassion on him. And in the process of having compassion, feeding him, getting him back to health, they say, well, who are you? He goes, well, I was a servant of the Amalekites. I was a slave. I got sick and they left me for dead. And he goes, well, do you know where they camp? Do you know where to find them? Do you know how to get there? He goes, yeah, I can tell you where they are. I know their camping spots. So they go and they raid the Amalekites. They destroy them and they get everything back. They get absolutely everything back. No one's been hurt or harmed or killed. And they get 10 times more because the Amalekites have been raiding all over the southern part of the Mediterranean Sea area, and what you and I would call southern Israel. They've been raiding all of that, and they have goods from everybody. And so when they take the Amalekites, they come away filthy, filthy rich. And they give some to the kings of Judah and some of these other towns, and are giving it away. They divide it up amongst themselves. There's a little debate on whether the guys who were too tired to go any further should get any of the goods. And David says yes, because obviously we failed to guard Ziklag. Not leaving guards was our problem, so we're not going to make sure the guards get cheated out of their share. I mean, got a share. And a few days later, news comes to him that the war between the Philistines and Saul has been completed. Saul has, so of all of his sons, there's no more heir to the throne. And while David's standing and burned out Ziklag, he's got all of his stuff back. But word comes to him that we want you to come up to Hebron. We're going to anoint you king of the southern tribe of Judah. And he leaves Ziklag. He'll never be back there again. And God's promises begin to be ultimately fulfilled, because it doesn't take long at all for all the other tribes to start coming down and bowing the knee and saying, you're our king, more and more. There's a little bit of a civil war. For 7 years, David is king of the southern part of the Jewish people. And then at the end of 7 years, he's king over the whole thing, and he will have the largest empire the Jewish nation would ever have. So when God says, it's a Ziklag moment, I'm like, oh, that's the time when you're close but not quite where God wants you to be. Close but not exactly living in the blessings of God. Close but not quite doing and getting the things God wants you to have, and He has a slightly different destiny for you, and the thing that you're in now has to be destroyed in order for Him to give you what He really wants to give you. That's a Ziklag moment. It's not sinful. It's not wrong. It's not evil. It's doing what the best you can with what you have. And everybody in here, if you follow Jesus for them, I guarantee you'll probably have Ziklag moments in your life, where you'll feel like God's taking something from me that I want, that I like, I finally got some peace, I got some security, and you ask, really? Was it really that good? And it's like, well, it had its problems, right? Well, how is God going to do it? Well, I kept wanting God to fix the problems. And God says, well, what if I had you in the wrong thing, wrong place? What if I needed you to do something different? When I stood there and I looked at this completely destroyed thing, but it was going to wipe out our Streetwise Cafe. And I knew Streetwise Cafe wasn't going to come back. I was sensing God saying, it's a Ziklag moment. Meaning He's taken away the thing that never quite worked. It wasn't quite right. And we could never figure out why. It wasn't like, we were out killing Gershites and slaughtering them, I don't know what we're doing. We're doing the best we can. We just can't make money at this darn thing. We even have, other restaurant consultants stand in the middle of our cafe and say, your service is good, your food is phenomenal, your prices are excellent. Why isn't this place packed? They go, I don't know. I don't know. They didn't know either. But we have felt it's time for something bigger to change. But you know, nobody wants to be the person pulling the trigger on that, do they? No one wants to make that decision and say, hey, we've made a decision. You're closed, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're out of a job, you're done, all this project. Nobody wants to make that decision. And so God made it for us. He made it for us with a storm that was ridiculous. Wasn't that ridiculous? Right? And it's like, and then the next stinking day it was like 95 again. Right? And he makes that decision. He could have had that storm come 4 days earlier, 3 days earlier, wouldn't have made a difference because the roof wasn't torn off. He waits right until our roof is torn off to send that storm. At those points you say, hey, what is God saying to us? What does God say? And God is saying, I believe, I have something new. But I don't know what new looks like, because when I go out there and stand, I'm like, I'm seeing burned out Ziklag. Yeah. Now there's some crazy weird things. Like the floor is damaged ridiculously, right? And I remember standing there looking at where the water was dripping down, and it's missing our TVs and our speakers and hitting the floor. And I'm looking up at the theatrical lighting, and I'm watching the water come down on the ceiling and hit the HVAC pipe and go over it, and missing all of our theatrical lighting by like 10 inches. Not a piece of equipment was destroyed. Not a single piece of the, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000 of equipment was, everything works fine. None of it got water. All the water missed everything we owned, all the furniture and everything, missed it all, and only hit the floors. And wiped out our cheap, low-budget floor.
Amen.
Right? What causes us to shut down? What does God want to do?
Renewing.
Renewing. Maybe revival. So I'm going to let you on some secrets. Conversations Tanya and I have had. Conversations I've had for a while. And I didn't know what to do with them. But one of the questions that Tanya had said, and what struggled with her running the cafe, she said, if I wasn't here doing the cafe, if the cafe wasn't here doing outreach to the community, what does the Gathering House Church have? What outreach does the Gathering House Church have to the community? We do the sack lunches. She's like, no, that's ours. Our Streetwise does that. The sack lunches is that budget. What's the Gathering House Church doing to reach the community? Well, we've provided the building that lets the cafe happen. Okay, but what are you doing? I'm like, baby, you got me there. Really, we're riding your coattails. We're hanging on to you, and you're doing it. And then we're bragging about it. Right? All the groups that meet in here all the time. The NAACP, the Racial Justice Equity Council that meets in this very room and talks to the Sheriff's Department about whether or not there ought to be a new jail and what can be done about racial inequities that are happening inside our jail. And they're meeting in this room doing, I love that that's going on, and that's fantastic. I have all these other groups, the Spokane Fatherhood Initiative that meets here, all these other groups that meet and come into this building that we have provided, that meet here. It's fantastic. But the question is, and how does the Gathering House Church people do that? How are they connecting to that? Who in the Gathering House Church is people making those things happen? Well, our coffee shop is. Tanya would give me our coffee shop is. I know how many hours I'm down here. I'm like, yeah, you kind of got me on that one, babe. You got me that when I would talk to people, other pastors who love our model and think it's fantastic and think they should do it, and I would say, you know, I spent a lot of years in church trying to figure out how to get the community to walk onto the campus of the church. I was in big churches where we'd do car shows or we'd put on huge harvest festivals and stuff to try to get the community to come onto our church campus and be like, walk into our building, please, be here. And that would be our way of trying to reach the community to get ministry to happen. And I said, this is the only church I've ever been in where the community's coming in droves by the hundreds almost every single day of the week. And my problem here is, how do I connect my church people with the community that's walking into their campus every single day? I'm not very good at that. I haven't figured that out yet. And as we talk more and more, and especially in the aftermath of this, it's almost like I heard God saying, all right, I'm going to take away your coffee shop. Now, Gathering House Church, what bragging rights do you have about reaching the community? What programs are you running? What events are you doing? What evangelism is going on? What love and care is happening? You don't get to brag about the coffee shop anymore. What do you have? And I'm like, damn it. Not so much. Not so much. And that's when I thought God was saying, that's why it's Ziklag. It's close. But it's not exactly the right thing. The right thing is when ministry is exploding out of here, because all of us are part of it. The right thing is when love is happening out of this to the community, because we're all doing it. The right thing is when evangelism is taking place and souls are being saved and lives are being transformed and counseling moments are happening and Bible studies are going on because we're doing it. And for 5 years, I'm probably the worst and guilty of it. We provided the place where other people can do it. And I think God's saying, enough of that. It's your turn, Gathering House Church. You don't get to brag about a coffee shop anymore who's doing it for you. You have 3 or 4 months, because even after the floors are back in, it's going to take a while to get another coffee shop going. You have 3 or 4 months to figure it out. How are you going to love this community around you, Gathering House Church? What are you going to do that reaches them? What do you do for the struggling single moms? What are you going to do for the elderly who can't take care of their homes very well and they're on fixed incomes? What are you going to do for the homeless street kids who hang out at Shale Park? What's the outreach? What's the impact? What are you going to do, Gathering House Church? You don't get to brag about a coffee shop that does it for you anymore. Does this hurt? I'm sorry if it hurts. It hurts me. I'm like, dang it! I love being able to brag about the coffee shop. I love being able to say all this cool stuff's going on in here, in our building. And some of the cool stuff still will happen. But I think God's saying to all of us as a church, you guys who say you're part of the Gathering House Church and this is your home, and this is where you want to be, and this is where you want to put your feet on, this is where you want to grow spiritually and make things happen. I think God's calling all of us to say, okay, now it's your turn. What's it going to look like? And anyway, tell us what it looks like. And you know what? I don't have any stinking answers. I've been worried about getting a floor repaired. But I would hope that as I say these things, something inside you is going, yeah. Something's burning in your heart saying, I don't want to sit on the bench anymore and watch other people in the game making it happen. I want to be in the game. I want to be a player. I want to be an impact person for Jesus Christ. And it doesn't have to be a huge impact. But I don't want to just sit and hear the stories about how someone else in my church building is impacting the kingdom. I want to be the one impacting the kingdom. I want to be a player in all of this. And I hope your heart's being lit up for that. Because I honestly think at this moment in our history, that's what God is saying. He's saying, build your ministries, and then I'll give you back your coffee shop. Is that what you're saying, God? I think yes. He said, build your ministries, and I'll give you back your coffee shop. And he didn't take our equipment, he didn't take our tech, he didn't take any, he took our floor. So we can do that, yeah. But it's still going to take weeks. So I think the call on all of our lives is to begin to pray, hey, if you could do anything for Jesus Christ, if you could have any kind of meeting, if you could gather any kind of people group, if you could do something for Jesus Christ, what would you do? What would you do? And as you figure that out, and the answer begins to come to you more and more, and starts to light your heart, start sharing it and talk to other people, because I guarantee he'll put probably that same call on someone else's life too. What things could we be doing with our building for the next 3 to 4 months, because it will take us a while to find another business and get it set up in here, that we could say, this is what we're going to do to impact the community. And these are going to be ministries that belong to the Gathering House, that are ours to do. I think that's what Jesus wants from us. I'm bummed that this happened. I don't mind this. This is kind of cool. I'm bummed that this happened, but I'm starting to understand it more and more. In the last, I get to walk in this building and sit with it. And for days I've had to look at it. And I've had to say, Lord, why would you do this? That freak storm, one Tuesday night after the roof's ripped off, could have been 2 days later, 3 days later, would have been different. Could have warned us. All the answers I had like that. And I realized, oh, you burnt Ziklag. We didn't lose anything, right? We got everything back that we all had, but you burned Ziklag. So what's the new thing? Because after Ziklag burned, David becomes king of Hebron. What's the new thing? Which is so much better than the old thing that you took away.
That's right.
Right? That's what we need to be looking for. That's what we need to be praying for. That's what we need to be striving for. God wants you, Gathering House church members, to transform and change this community in Spokane. What is He calling you to do? What is He calling you to do? That's going to be your question to wrestle with for several weeks. And if you're a visitor with us today, you're like, I don't even go to this church, thank God. Man, you're spanking everybody today. You know, if you put your faith in Jesus Christ at all, maybe you don't attend this church, you're like, God's still calling you to something.
That's right.
Right? God's calling you to something too. God doesn't want you just sitting on a bench watching the kingdom pass by. He wants you in it, making things happen, impacting people for Jesus Christ, for His kingdom's glory. And somewhere there's a passion in the heart inside you to do something that God wants you to do. There is a call upon your life that's divine and Holy Spirit empowered.
Yeah.
And He wants to get you on that track, unlock it, and unleash it.
Yeah.
Let's pray. Why don't you stand with me as we close? Lord, God, when you said it was a Ziklag moment, I knew what it meant. And I knew that it hurts, but it's a good hurt. It's the kind of hurt that makes you have to rethink how you've been doing things. And that what the past was is taken away because something new is coming. And you would rather give us the new thing that's coming because it's so much better and so much more powerful and so much more true to your calling on our lives than what we have. So Lord, help us with graciousness to let go and realize you did this. No human being made this decision. It was a divine decision.
Hallelujah.
And you made it so that we couldn't even undo your decision. And we tried. So help us with grace to accept what you have said, to acknowledge where we're standing, and then, Lord, begin to unleash in us the new future. And may our prayers and our hearts and our passions be driven towards a new future that isn't built like the old one. The same warriors are standing in the room, Lord. The same warriors are here who were here 2 weeks ago. Show us, Lord, where you want us to be and how you want us to be living. Because something's going to change. We don't know what it is, we don't know what the plan is, but you do, O Lord. And so we ask that you fulfill your destiny and your promises in each and every one of us, individually and collectively. You fulfill the calling that you placed on us when you put us in this building, and you have time and time and time again stepped up and saved the day.
Oh, amen.
And we ask you, Lord, save the day again, but in the process of saving the day, change us. Transform us into your likeness, that we might be who you want us to be. We ask and pray in your holy name, King of kings and Lord of lords, Jesus Christ our Savior. Amen. Amen. All right. We will be in this room next week. Monday night, we will see you in that cafe, tearing up floors.